Welcome back to another Excel tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about pivot tables, how to create pivot tables, and how to interpret the numbers in pivot table. Pivot tables are known for summarizing a large data set into smaller tables representing different categories, the relative frequency, and cumulative relative frequency. Before starting with creating the pivot table, two important points here about your data set. First of all, your data set should be a clean data set. It should include one or more than one column as of the variables and rows as of the data points or observations. Second point is that your data set should not include any empty cell or any empty row. For example, here, if we have blank rows, it will create a blank category in your pivot table, which doesn't have any meaning. Okay, now let's start with creating pivot tables. In order to create pivot tables, go to the Insert tab. The first option is for creating these pivot tables. We can start with selecting data, and when you select data, you can select all the columns, couple of first record, and then using a short key name as Control or Command, Shift, and then downside arrow on your keyboard. It will automatically select all the data for you. It's specifically useful when you have many data points in your data set. Here we have 342 data set. If you have more than that, the way you can quickly select all data is using that short key. Now that I select the data, I click on Insert tab, I select Pivot Table. This window will pop up. You can see that the data that we already selected is listed here. We are in the Fuel tab and data starts from cell A1 here and ends with cell H342. This data set lists various cars with their size feature, with their displacement, number of cylinders, whether they are forward, all-wheel drive, or rear-wheel drive, the fuel type, their city mile per gallon, and their highway mile per gallon. So we have the record of 341 cars, and we almost 7 features for each car. Now, I need to choose where do I want to put the pivot table. So I recommend, if you have a space, putting the pivot table in the same sheet as you have the data. This will help you to look at your data, the features, and also at the same time work on your pivot table. Otherwise, you can put it in a new worksheet. So I would choose existing worksheet, and then I need to specify exactly in what cell I want to put the pivot table. So either type down the name of the cell here, or using this icon here, you can automatically select through the worksheet. So I'm gonna select, for example, K1 and enter. Now I selected the cell that I want to put the pivot table there. So one thing that you need to make sure is selecting a cell that there is no information for a couple of rows after that, a couple of rows below that, and a couple of columns after that. You basically want an area that is empty, so Excel finds enough empty space to put the pivot table there. If I click OK, you can see that the empty pivot table now is generated. Now it's time for me to identify what variable, an item, I want to put in the pivot table. Let's say I want to know how many category of size do we have in the data set, and how many cars exist in each categories. So for that, I will go to the pivot table fields. If this column is not shown after creating the pivot table for you, you can go to the pivot table analyze tab and then select field list. So if you click on the field list, this column will pop up for you. Now again, I want to know how many category of car size do we have. So I select size, grab it, and drag it into the rows. So you can see that automatically the pivot table can identify 3 car size, including compact, large, and mid-size. Now I want to know how many cars exist in each category in my data set. I can grab the size again, put it value, and I want to make sure that it says count of size. So I actually don't want to add them up, I just want the Excel to count the data record or the rows that contains, for example, size compact, mid-size, and large. So this table shows that there are 122 cars in the compact category, 72 cars in the large category, and 147 cars in mid-size category. I can also sort this items. If I want to sort based on the number of items, I can select one cell, right click, select sort, and select largest to smallest. Now I can see that the most item in my data set is the mid-size car. So these numbers are also called frequency. So I can change the name by just clicking on the cell and just type frequency. And I can change the row label as the car size. So if I change this to frequency, you can say that the name for the value here also is changed to frequency. So we have in total 341 cars, and we have the number of cars in each category. Next thing that we can do is calculate the relative frequency or the percentage of the cars. One way is calculating it manually. So I can simply say 147 out of 341 cars are mid-size. If I click enter, that would be 43%. But if you have various category here, this is not an efficient way, right? Excel is here to make our life easier. So instead of calculating manually, we can add another column in our pivot table to show the relative frequency. Let's go to the pivot table field again, drag the size to the value. Still it's showing the number or frequency. I can click on this icon here, or right click and go to the field setting. So if I click on this new window pops up. So we are still focusing on number of items in each category. However, we want to show them as the percentage. So we are still focusing on count, not other categories, count, number of cars in each category. Instead of number of items, I want to show them as percentage grand total. Percentage grand total shows the relative frequency. So click on that, click OK. Now you can see that 43% of the cars are mid-size. Now I can change the name as well, relative frequency. And I can again adjust the width of the column, or I can put everything in the middle of the cell, including this. The summation of this relative frequency should be 100% of the cars. We can also provide some visualization. In order to provide some visualization, I'm gonna copy paste the pivot table or create again that pivot table one more time. I'm gonna get rid of relative frequency, so I'm gonna to remove that. Now I have only the frequency. Let's make a bar chart and pie chart for frequency. I can select my pivot table, and in order to visualize data, I can go to the insert. There is a section in the insert bar, insert tab, or insert ribbon that address different type of visualization. The first one is bar chart, this one is line chart, and this is pie chart. Let's start with the bar chart. Bar chart includes, the visualization includes two-dimensional visualization or three-dimensional visualization, or it can be horizontal or vertical. So you can basically go and work with different type. This is just for the sake of presentation, but in this video I'm going to just stick to the two-dimensional visualization and the simple version. It can be clustered bar chart or stacked bar chart. So let's start with the clustered bar chart. If I click on that, you can see that I have a bar chart that shows three different sizes of the car. The height of these bars also shows the frequency. So we have 147 for the mid-size and 120 for the compact. One thing that you need to notice and you need to pay attention is that this chart now is not informative. I don't know if I give it to someone, that person cannot understand what does this chart exactly mean. So we need to give an appropriate title. Frequency, you just click on the total and double click. I want to change this. Frequency of the car size. We also want to identify what does the x-axis means, what does y-axis means. So in another word, we want to add details to the graph. If after creating this bar chart, if you go to the design tab, a tab will pops up named design, and the first icon is add chart element. Click on that. Axis title, we want to add both horizontal and both the vertical axis title. Now I can click on the axis title and change the title. This is car size category and this is frequency. Since we have only one category here, we don't really need the legend, so I can click on that, select the legend and click on delete to just remove that. Now I have a informative graph. I can also go to the home tab, increase the fonts or change the font type or make any part of the fonts bold or italic. So you can basically play around to make your graph better or more beautiful as you wish. Another thing is that you can also go to the design tab and use predefined design by the Excel. So you can select any of this design to just have a good looking graphs.